you don't have to stretch. You don't have to.
Let's go play.
Right. You could just go.
Right.
Right. Charlie Strong called my father and said, hey, I'm about to be the head coach at Louisville.
Okay.
Do you want to come up for a visit? I know you wanted to go to Florida, but would Louisville be on the table? Right. And that was the only reason why she turned around and talked to him. Right. And so she gave me the time of the day. And I'm like, wow. So you must, you know what I'm saying? You must already see me.
Tell me what you're waiting for, the best is all for you. I gotta pray some more since I come home to you. I had to line it up, and they say we should shine it up, but that's just how his timing was, and look at what we do. They cannot tell me nothing, baby, the way you walk, I love it. And if you take too long, I'm rushing. I come to where you are, just trust it. Then we gon' love forever, and we gon' ride this thing together. I got my mind on you whenever, I keep my eyes on you forever. Man, we got the kind of love that says for work.
What's up, family? Welcome back to the Progress Podcast. My name is Russell Fugit, and we're so glad to have you here. As you can see here, I have a very special guest. But before we introduce him, just want to remind you that we're here in the Progress Podcast to get to the heart of marriage, family, healing, and love. And today we're going to talk a lot about family. We're going to talk a little bit about marriage and a lot about healing as well, particularly around mental health. And so Sela's not here today. We're having a men's conversation. So men, I hope you can tap in today. Ladies, I hope you can tap in as well. And if you have a loved one you want to share this episode with, I think this is going to be an episode you are going to want to share. And so I'm really grateful to have you here today. So I'm here and just grateful, so grateful for one of my newer friends to be able to be here today. He hails from Georgia by way of Louisville, where he was ACC Defensive Player of the Year. Drafted first round pick in 2014, the National Football League by the Philadelphia Eagles, played for the Seattle Seahawks, played for the now known as the Washington Commanders, but most importantly has an amazing mental health journey, mental health testimony, and is the founder of Circle of M. And I'm not going to steal the thunder away from him. I'll let him tell his story in this space, and I'm so grateful he's given the gift of that to us. He's married, a dad, and we're going to get into all of it today. So without further ado, grateful to have on the Progress Podcast, Marcus Smith II.
Man.
How'd I do?
Did
I nail it?
You nailed that
Okay.
one.
I know there's a lot more to mention.
Yeah, nah.
But I think those are the highlights.
I appreciate that.
And, this is just so cool, man, because, you literally just pulled up to my house and we're doing it here. And we, had a phone call and we had a Zoom call, if I'm not mistaken. And we've been texting the last week. And obviously you've been digging into all the many things you do. I mean, you're a podcaster multiple times over, YouTube channel, speaking, doing so much on mental health. But I just wanted to start from the beginning, growing up, Georgia, and we were just talking in the hallway that you were a quarterback before you ended up being Defensive Player of the Year in college. Yeah. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about who was Marcus Smith II growing up in Georgia, if we can start from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, thank you, first off. I appreciate being on this pod. This is amazing. It's a blessing to be here, for one, obviously. But growing up, for me, was we had a sports background, right? I'm from Columbus, Georgia. A lot of times, if you look at Columbus, Georgia, sports is the way out, right? People look at sports as a tool to be able to get out of where they are. Right, to get out of that impoverished mindset that I have to stick where I'm at, and I can't make more money or make something of myself from where I am, right? And so that's kind of what my upbringing was. My father and my mother, my mom is actually a sports fanatic. She's really good at sports. So I get my sports background from my mom. My dad, I get my size from him, right? All of my uncles are probably about the same size. My cousins are the same size. And even the women on my dad's side are pretty large, right? 6'1", 6'2". They just, we're just big people. But I fell in love with football when I was 5 years old.
Oh, wow.
Right? So me and my dad used to sit in the living room, and I would watch Monday Night Football with him until I had to go to sleep. And so that's when I first fell in love with the game, just because I just idolized the people on the screen. And I think I really started idolizing it when Vince Young and Michael Vick started really coming to the picture. Now you got a quarterback. Obviously, I played quarterback. Now I got someone who actually looks like me, who is actually doing the same thing as me. And now I feel like, you know what? I could probably make it to the NFL because these guys are showing me the way. And so that's where it all started from. But when we talking about mental health, my first anxiety attack was when I was 8 years old, right? And football was kind of my place of peace, place of refuge, right? My first anxiety attack was at my grandmother's house, and nobody knew what it was.
Right. What's up, friends? What's up, family? Thanks for watching and listening to the Progress Podcast. We really appreciate how you've been a part of this journey so far. It's been a quick few months that we're here, and we're really excited to continue going forward in this journey. We really would appreciate having your support via a donation. Check out the links in the description to consider making a donation. Your contribution allows us to continue to bring this content to you at the highest quality and to continue to secure the best guests, to continue to sow into you and to continue this journey going forward. So check out the links in the description. Thanks for being a part of this. We're really excited for all the things to come as we make progress.
Right? She put a blood pressure cuff on me to check my blood pressure. My mom and my father had been, they were out at, doing dinner. And that was my first anxiety attack, and nobody knew what it was. And then after that, it was like we never talked about it again. We didn't even go to the doctor to talk about it. But I started to have issues with it all the time. Yeah. Because not realizing as a kid, my parents were going through a divorce. And so that was what was affecting me. Yeah. And that's when my anxiety really started to bring about. But I say all that to say, where I am right now, my childhood, football was the place of peace for me to get over my anxiety.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I relate to that story so much, and I read a little bit about that on your website, Circle of M. And my parents went through a divorce as well. Yeah. And I know I would act out. I was just the troublemaker in school, and not terribly, but enough to want to get attention. To one point where I know as a kid, from what I was told, I admitted I was hoping to do this and hoping that my dad would come back. And, and shout out, I'm wearing my dad's jersey today. Yeah. And so, that's the connection that we have. Like, my dad played 8 seasons in Dallas and in Washington. And so, but certainly like the divorce of my parents certainly was a moment where I think mental health became part of my story as well. Yeah. And I remember being at school and going to see, there was like a random lady that I would go see. And just talk to from time to time between, like, maybe I was 3rd, 4th, 5th grade around that time. I didn't really understand why I was talking to, because everybody didn't go. Yeah. They would just call me out of class. Right. And I remember having conversations. I remember kind of, it was interesting getting asked certain questions, but I think it was like kind of like counseling, I guess, or just checking on me. I don't know. But I remember that certainly. So I certainly resonate with that part of your story. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's crazy because I used to go see somebody too. Okay, yeah. Because right in the heart of my parents trying to figure it out. Right. Right. My sister, who was 2 years older than me, she's having a different experience because she's reaching puberty. Sure. Like she's, looking at my father. She gonna understand more about what's going on. Right. And different relationship with the parents. Yep. Right. Yep. And so for me, like I was going to see somebody, but my upbringing for me was still I wasn't really seeing that. It was kind of by the wayside, right? Like the anxiety and things of that nature. I just felt like I could deal with it, right? Because naturally, as Black people, we mask, and we deal with these issues. And as a kid, I always explain it like, as a kid, you don't have to stretch, you don't have to just go play, right? You could just go, right? And so that was the least of my worries, even if it was something that was on my mind that I was dealing with, right? I just felt like I could just keep going and it'd just go away. But really, it sticks with you. Yeah. And if you don't ever address it, it's just going to travel with you as you get older. Yeah. My sport was basketball, and that was my place to play. It was, when I could get out there, I could get away from it. I was angry. I get to go play. And I remember that was one of my outlets. And so sports definitely being an outlet. It's a great outlet just because it takes for that moment, that
hour, 2
Right,
hours,
exactly.
you're in a mode where you just at peace.
True.
And it's like, I'll deal with this later.
And it's fun.
You know?
I tore my knee up in high school, but before that, middle school into high school, it was a place of refuge to be out there and have fun. So going forward into high school, obviously football became your thing.
Mm-hmm.
As we were saying, you started at quarterback. How'd you get to Louisville from Georgia?
Yeah, so funny story about that. When I became a junior, well, before my sophomore year, they came to me and it was like, hey, we want you to be the starter, right? They seen something in me. Yeah,
okay.
They seen something in me that I didn't see in myself. I said, wait, you want me to be the starter? Mm-hmm. Because I did well in JV the year prior, right? So they came to me and said, hey, we want you to be a starter. I was a sophomore. I'm only 15, about to turn 16. And it's like, wow, like y'all coming to me saying this is what I should be. And at the time, my grades wasn't where they needed to be, right? And so my dad used to always say to me, man, make sure you do the stuff that you need to do. So when that time comes for people to start asking about you, they want to know who you are. Like, they looking at your film, they want you to come to the school. The grades are the least of your concern, right? And so I get to my junior year and I start to do better. I start to get my grades up. And then guess what? Florida comes knocking on my door. The University of Florida comes knocking on my door. And by the grace of God, literally they come to the school off of my highlight tape.
Okay.
Never seen me before. No, nothing. Like they just like, yo, we love this highlight tape. Because the first play on my highlight tape was me breaking like 5 tackles and throwing a bomb.
Okay.
Touchdown.
Got
right.
it.
So they're like, okay, we need to go see this guy. So I ended up throwing. Well, I don't think they were supposed to come to school and I was supposed to throw in front of them. I think that was illegal as far as NCAA. But I ended up throwing in front of them, and they offered me a full scholarship
to Florida.
Right. But then they came back and was like,
this is Urban Meyer?
Yeah. Well, yes. This is Urban Meyer.
Okay.
This is where Tim Tebow.
Right. Okay.
This is like 09.
Yeah. Let's get the time. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
When so Florida 09, was Florida. They national champions.
Right.
So you can imagine, like all of us, my coaches, they seen the offer letter come through the fax, and they couldn't even believe it themselves. And I'm like, you know what? I could barely believe it. Right. And so what happened? Charlie Strong was at Florida at the time. He was the linebackers coach. So when we used to go visit, me and my father had a great relationship with him. So Florida ended up pulling the offer because I didn't have the grades. Because at the time they're a national championship team, and they could just go get somebody just like me,
right?
I.e. Jordan Reed. Jordan Reed was a quarterback. He ended up turning him into tight end.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's the same. That's what they wanted to do with me.
Yeah.
They see me as a quarterback, but they wanted me to come in and probably play tight end.
Funny story, Jordan Reed, I think, broke 1 or 2 of my dad's records for the Redskins, now
man,
Commanders.
Jordan Reed's an animal,
yeah,
man.
He was amazing.
Great guy, man, too.
Seemed like it. I never had a chance to meet him, but seemed like it. And we loved him here in Washington for the years he was here.
But, yeah, that's what they wanted to do with me. And when they pulled the offer, it was kind of a hard thing, and I didn't really get any other offers like Tennessee and WKU would come up to the school. So I was about to go to JUCO. Okay. But it wasn't until Charlie Strong called my father and said, hey, I'm about to be the head coach at Louisville.
Okay.
Do you want to come up for a visit? I know you wanted to go to Florida, but would Louisville be on the table? And me and my dad went up there, and he offered me on the spot. And I committed on the spot.
Wow.
Right? Okay. So just the relationship, and it's for other people too. When you, as kids, as you're going through your recruiting process, as God is leading you through that with your parents, build your relationships with the coaches and the people that are there, because they could go somewhere else and be a helping hand for you. And that's what Strong was to me. He was like, yo, we believe in your ability, and we want you to come to Louisville. So that's how I got to Louisville as a quarterback. And he told me that I could play quarterback, because I was like Lamar Jackson. I'm like, I'm not switching no positions. Okay. I want to play quarterback.
Right.
And then I get to school, and I'm a linebacker.
And you're a linebacker. You're a linebacker. Who went on to be the player, the ACC Defensive Player of the Year, which is amazing.
End up working out. out.
So you get to Louisville.
Yeah.
Where were you personally in that season? 18, 19 years old. You're obviously leaving home.
Yeah.
You're an adult now.
Yeah.
You've been recruited into into a top level D1 football program.
Yeah.
Where were you in your mental space and your spiritual space? Where were you in that season?
Yeah, it was tough. I used to get homesick a lot.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of times God's plan for us, we don't see it. Other people see it,
Sure.
right? They see things in you.
Yep.
And then God can show you a vision of where you're going to be, but he don't show you the in-between of or how you're going to get there, right? So I always had a vision of me winning the Heisman and all of that,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And so I get to school, homesick, these things are happening, and then Charlie Strong comes up to me and he says, "What you think about playing defense?" And I'm like, well, I'm standing over here. I'm not really getting any burn at quarterback. You know, I just want to do whatever it takes to get on the field.
You hadn't played defense in high school?
Hadn't played defense, no nothing. I'm just a quarterback.
Got it.
Right? So in my mind, I'm thinking that I'm a quarterback, but sometimes it takes someone where you don't really see it in yourself, but they see it in you, right? It takes that extra push for them to be like, you know what? Like, I think you would be great at this. That's what coaches are, right? And so I was just really taking his lead and saying, well, maybe I can play this, right? And then I end up, starting the first game of the season. But then after that, I end up getting demoted. So you talk about the mental structure of my brain, right? It was still mentally hard for me to change a position that I've never played before and try to do it well. So now you're talking about confidence, right? My confidence isn't there. So my anxiety is through the roof. And then that anxiety turns into depression later. But I didn't know that I was depressed. Right? So as I'm going through the season, I'm thinking I'm making the right decision. I'm thinking that God put me in the right place, right? But then you start having doubts of like, okay, is this the place where I need to be? Right. And then I wasn't talking to my parents or the coaches because the atmosphere of being in football is you can't cry.
Sure.
You need to be tough.
Yeah.
Don't be a punk.
Man up.
Yeah, right. So it's not like I'm going to talk to the coaches or my teammates about, what I'm feeling or what I'm dealing with. And I also didn't have the emotional intelligence to tell somebody.
Right. This is your freshman year.
This is my freshman year.
Okay. It wasn't like they redshirted you and then figured out you should be on defense. They threw you out there.
First game. Wow. My parents was like, you playing what? You know what I mean? Because it wasn't, I think Coach Strong called my dad and then he asked me like, is that what you want to do? And I'm like, if I'm going to be a team player, because I'm always thinking about the team, right?
Sure.
If I'm going to be a team player, if I can help them in this way, then I'm going to do it.
As opposed to standing here and watching.
Right.
Yeah.
But getting demoted, though, after that.
After the first game.
It's like, dang, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was, right? And that really took a toll on me just, being in college and then having to deal with just watching my teammates play and be on the sideline because I was demoted. I was basically demoted for the rest of the year.
So you played one game of defense and then you came as a quarterback.
And then I played like special teams.
Okay.
Right? And then I didn't really get any snaps on defense for the rest of the year until the last game of the season. One of my teammates got hurt and I got my opportunity again.
Okay.
And I wasn't letting that.
You didn't let it go after that point?
Nope. Quite. But there's another story too.
Okay.
So I was linebacker then, right? So think about the anxiety just from playing a different position. Right? So you're going into something unknown. Now, when the season is over, all our D linemen are getting surgery. So when we're in spring football, they need D linemen. So where are they going to get them from?
Gotcha.
So now they move my position again.
Right.
So now I'm in the trenches with 300-pounders, and I'm 230.
Would you be 230? Okay.
I'm like 235 at the most. And so now it's another monkey wrench that is thrown in my story that I have to get over this hump. And, right, it's just constant trials right now as I'm moving through college.
Yeah.
God is giving me, he's throwing stuff at me, right? And that was tough in itself, and I really was at a point where I wanted to quit and be done because I was so depressed and not in a good mental space that I really felt like, football wasn't for me.
Yeah. So what kept you going as you got to when you got the opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't let it go.
Yeah.
You got through spring ball, you got through the next summer, going into the next couple years. Between that point and getting to a first round pick, how did you go from a quarterback to basically a freshman backup defensive linebacker to now a D lineman?
Yeah. Well, man,
it sounds so improbable just saying it, right?
It's weird.
Yeah. So God clearly had a plan. So what does those next couple years look like?
And it was unfolding in front of me, but I couldn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's a lot of times, God, it's like we're walking through the forest blindfolded.
Mm.
So that's how it felt.
Mm.
Like everything that was in front of me, it didn't, from a worldly perspective, it didn't look like what I thought it should look like.
Yeah.
But in a spiritually perspective, it was everything. It was exactly where I needed to be and how I needed to be, right? And so what kept me going was my coach, which he's a defensive line coach with the Philadelphia Eagles right now. Shout out to Clinton Hurt. That spring before my junior season, he said to me, he pulled me into the office and he said, I need you to stick with it. He said, you're going to make a lot of money playing this position one day, and I just need you to stick with it, right? And he was super hard on me. So I never had heard that before, right? He was like a father figure. Like my dad was the same way with me. Like he never really gave me praise, right? So it was almost like I was always searching for that, like, attaboy, or like, you doing a good job.
The affirmation.
Yeah, and I wasn't hearing that. So I didn't know if I was really doing well because he was so focused on, my coach was so focused on getting me where I needed to be, and he didn't want me to get complacent. He wanted me to stay humble, and he pulled me to the side and he said, hey, you are going to do well at this position. I need you to keep going. And that was the ultimate confidence that I needed to keep going. And then my junior year comes, and literally, and that's not to say I'm still dealing with a lot of that anxiety, but now I have the confidence to at least play, right? And as a college student, right, we're still young. So even if I am dealing with something, I can still kind of push it to the side and keep playing. Right. Like I used to be able to practice with nothing on my stomach.
Huh, okay.
No eating, no nothing.
Okay.
Like I just used to be able to go. Now I think that's just a testament to us being young. Certain things we can do when we get older.
No, you can't do that. Yeah.
you can't do
Your
that
body
no
will
more.
tell you.
Yeah.
If not, stop you dead in your tracks.
So my junior year, we played Florida in the Sugar Bowl.
Okay.
So full circle moment.
Wow. Okay.
Right. We played Florida in the Sugar Bowl. We're going up against Charlie Strong's old team. We're going up against a team that gave up on me. Right. So that's kind of the chip
Motivation.
that I walked in with. I ended up having 2.5 sacks that game. We ended up winning the game. We won the Sugar Bowl. And my senior year, I just I went 14.5 sacks.
Yeah.
My senior year.
Wow.
Right. And so just from that one conversation with my coach, right, it propelled me to really be a force at the defensive line, outside linebacker position. And it led me to being 26 overall draft pick to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Right. I need, man, and someone who's grown up around sports, multiple professional athletes in my family, but around a lot of coaches. I've been blessed to coach a little bit here and there. I just need the coaches to hear that.
Yeah.
Like, I just need the coaches to hear that encouragement, that affirmation, that speaking the vision into these young men and women's lives.
Yeah.
Right. About what they can do, what's possible for them. And it may not play out in them being a first round pick, but it can play out in them being excellent at what they do on the next season of their life.
Yeah.
And so that's just an amazing, amazing story.
Yeah.
So I know you talked a little bit in your bio behind the scenes, like what was in terms of your mental health and some of the things you were happening that, were a little, I guess you could say, abnormal.
Mm-hmm.
That I know you said your roommate, it was a story I know your roommate identified some behavior. So you were having all this success on the field, but off the field, how are you doing in the other rest of your life, right? While you're excelling into this position of being a first round pick.
Yeah, I'm not really addressing these issues that have been plaguing me since I was 8.
Yeah.
I'm constantly having anxiety attacks in my sleep, right? I don't know if they call it, because once I went to All Points is a treatment facility that I ended up going to after I was done playing, but they call it like night terrors.
Okay.
And I was having them frequently, right? So it was almost like I was, I would wake up out of my sleep and gasp, and like, right?
Okay, yeah.
It's like, something is taking the breath out of me. But it was happening a lot to the point where like my teammates and my roommates would have to come in the room and be like, bro, you good? What's going on?
Yeah.
And then when I go to the doctor, they can't really tell me what the problem is.
There's no diagnosis per se.
So that was happening to me a lot. And that was from just my anxiety, because at the end of the day, if you really let's think about mental health here for 1 second, right? If you look at anxiety, it's a lot of it is you worrying about what's to come. Right. So it could be practice for the next day. It could be the game, right? And then I come to find out later on that I end up having an anxiety disorder, right?
Okay.
So I could have been diagnosed early and kind of got the help that I needed, but because of the background and the community that I come from, Black, brown people, that's not something that we look at.
Right.
So for me, like going into having to understand that that's what I was dealing with, right? Sometimes I would be at practice with nothing on my stomach because I didn't have an appetite to eat. We spoke about not eating, right? And then I would be sleep deprived and still performing, right? So how am I not getting any sleep and I'm still performing?
Not eating.
Yeah, but I could do this in college, right?
Right.
But now think about all of this stuff that I'm going through, and I'm performing at a high level. It looks great on the outside. Then I get drafted, right? So now it's added pressure. So everything, all the baggage that I've been carrying since I was 8 years old, now it's going to be fans. It's going to be coaches. It's going to be family. Added pressure to me. Media.
Philadelphia media, I know, notoriously.
Man, they used to kill me.
Yeah.
Man, they used to kill me, man.
And number 1 first round pick, so you're supposed to come in and
I gotta perform.
Right. Is that pressure?
I gotta perform.
Yeah.
That was hard. That was a hard thing. And I would sit in my room and cry all the time because that first year I didn't play at all. Yeah. And I wasn't playing at my very best.
So first round pick and then you didn't play.
I didn't play. No. And I didn't play well. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
I wasn't playing well, right? But I was so focused on making sure that everybody else had, and I wasn't taking care of myself.
Okay. What's up, friends? What's up, family? Thanks for watching and listening to the Progress Podcast. We really appreciate how you've been a part of this journey so far. It's been a quick few months that we're here, and we're really excited to continue going forward in this journey. We really would appreciate having your support via a donation. Check out the links in the description to consider making a donation. Your contribution allows us to continue to bring this content to you at the highest quality and to continue to secure the best guests, to continue to sow into you and to continue this journey going forward. So check out the links in the description. Thanks for being a part of this. We're really excited for all the things to come as we make progress.
On my mama's house before I even touched the field.
Got you.
Right? But if I could go back,
right,
I would focus on my season, focus on what I needed to focus on in order to be successful. But everybody around you, you know how it is. It's like you constantly being pulled on.
Right.
Right. And I'm the first one in my family to ever make it that far, ever make that type of money.
Sure.
Right. So it's hard to be pulled on and take care of your mental health at the same time. And that's not what I was doing at all.
I know a lot of people have trouble centering themselves.
Yep.
In previous episodes, my wife, she's 4 years now, over 8 months, 4 years, 8 months, going on 5 years sober. Wow. And one of the things I had to stage intervention for her.
Yeah.
And one of the things I had to say to her was, you got to be selfish. Because if you can't take care of yourself, then you can't be the wife and mother we need in this house and for this family and the daughter and the sister and the friend.
Yeah.
Everybody else needs, right? And so, in that sense, we have to take care of ourselves. If we don't have our health, we're not good to anybody.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that again, having grown up around pro sports, I
Yeah.
can imagine the pressure. I can imagine that world, coming from, this is pre-NIL money. So, right. So as soon as you get to that, a lot of people don't realize before NIL, and I'm sure you can speak to this more than I can, as soon as you're done playing college, I know agents and other people will lend you money before the draft and that time for you can go train in Florida, right? And go and get ready. You can buy your mom the house before you get drafted because they know you're going to get that guaranteed contract.
Right.
But you're already making commitments. You're already doing business at a whole different level, going from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
Where I know, baseball and it's a little bit different. I know basketball is similar in terms of that, like nothing to something overnight. Again, now with NIL money, it's changing. But I say in your day, in our day, which is not that long ago, but so much has changed recently. But that level of pressure and the suddenness. Yeah. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the suddenness of that.
Yeah, it was.
I'm sure family and people calling you that weren't calling you before, asking for things they were asking for before.
I got a call every day by a different person. I remember telling my wife that in 2016, right? Because we was married. We wasn't married yet, but we was getting married in 2017. But when she was my girlfriend, she lived with me out close to the facility in Philly, and this is before I went to Seattle. Somebody different will call me every day, right? And naturally, we're givers.
Of course.
Right? I'm a servant. Yeah. I like helping people. I like giving a helping hand. Yeah. And so people was pulling on my heartstrings to do that. And I think it's so profound what you said about being selfish and how can you be the best version of you, right, for somebody else if you're not the best version of you for yourself.
There you go.
And so that's kind of where it took some time to even get like that. And even going through my career, even with the Eagles, nobody really understood that. The only person that really understood was my wife because she was there with me every day. But when you look at it, and especially you looking on it on the outside, it's like, what do you have to be afraid of, or what do you have to cry about?
Right,
bro. You're in a position that a lot of people,
will kill for, quite literally, to have that.
But the money. I still got money, but that don't change
how you feel.
The issues. Yeah, it don't change nothing. So, I know you hear people say that all the time, but it's the truth. It's the facts, right? For the love of money is the root of all evil, and that's the truth. That's what the word says. Yeah, and that's what I believe.
Yeah, the love of money, not money itself.
Not money itself, but for the love of it,
replacing what should be God with an idol.
Right.
And money and success and fame and all these other things that are fleeting.
Right.
And again, growing up around sports, I see how fleeting it can be.
Yep.
And especially playing the game you play, one injury away. And we'll get to that in a second too. But I wanted to stop. How did you meet your wife? Was she in college, high school?
She was in college.
Okay.
So my wife is a midwife.
Okay, wow.
She's a nurse practitioner. And she was going to UPenn, so University of Pennsylvania. Okay. She's a smarty. I love to brag about that.
You married up.
I love bragging about that because she's helped me in many ways tremendously.
It's beautiful.
And you wouldn't see the person sitting before you like how I am today without her.
Okay.
So I always give her flowers. But I met her. My teammate is a Kappa.
Okay.
Right? And he was dragging us out the house like I ain't even want to come out the house that day, right? So it was Penn relays, and he was like, they're having a stroll competition. Like, bro, have you ever been to a stroll competition? I'm like, nah,
right.
What I'm going to a stroll competition for? And so because he was going, we went. A lot of my teammates went, and I met her there in person, not online. Right. You know what I mean? Met her there in person, and I got her number there. Was definitely afraid to talk to her, and I actually had a torn hamstring at the time.
Okay.
And she was walking so fast that like I couldn't really catch up to her.
That's funny.
So I had my teammate, shout out to Jordan Matthews, stop her. And the only reason she talked to him was because he was respectful.
Okay. Because
he came up to her and said, "Hey, my name is Jordan Matthews. My friend would like to talk to you." And some guys, we might have to do some guy talk one-on-one of how you speak to a female.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
You got to make sure you come respectful.
Yes.
Right? You address them like the woman, the beautiful woman that whoever you're talking to, address her like that. Right? And that's the only reason why she turned around and talked to him. Right? And so she gave me the time of the day. And I'm like, wow. So you must, you know what I'm saying? You must already seen me. You must like me before.
Yeah,
you know?
must have caught her eye.
But
that's a great story.
One other thing I wanted to point out with that story, I was standing there and she was throwing pineapples away in a trash can right next to me. And she kept coming over there. So that's how I got a visual. That's how I seen her, right? And then she ended up walking off with her cousin, and that's how we got to the point of my Jordan Matthews was like, do you want to talk to her? I'm like, yes, I want to talk to her, right? And so that's how that happened. And I know everybody talks about this, or I feel like a lot of couples say this. You know, we got on the phone, we talked for hours.
Yeah.
And she was pouring into me more than any other woman has poured into me. And my thought process then was, you know I wanted a woman by my side, because when you're going through all that stuff in the league, you see so much. I've seen so much, and I've seen women take advantage of my teammates or things of that nature.
Sure, yeah.
So my thought process at the time was like, am I going to be able to find somebody that's truly loves me for me, not for what I do, not for who I am.
What do you think you can do for them?
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So I didn't know if that was possible.
Yeah.
And I don't think my family knew that either, because, you know, they haven't got that far either. And so it was God's choice, literally. Like, he just dropped her right there.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even looking for it. You know what I mean? I wasn't looking for it that day. And so, yeah, that's how I met my wife, and, man, the rest is...
So, in Philly, this is before you got drafted to the Eagles. Right?
No, this is after.
Oh, this is after you got drafted.
Yeah,
okay.
This is 2015.
I know Jordan Matthews played. I remember him on the Eagles.
This is second year.
Okay.
Second year in the league. She was in her second year in college. I'm 3 years older than my wife.
Got you. That's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Now, before we move forward to, you went from the Eagles to the Seattle Seahawks. We've talked about God and obviously faith. There's a faith underpinning to everything here. Who was God to you from that 8-year-old boy up till the early 20s, first, second year player, first round pick in Philadelphia? Now, how did you find Christ? How did you get introduced to who Christ was, and how do you see him now looking back, showing up in that season?
Yeah, so I came to God when I was 8.
Okay.
So my mom, we went to church. We went to Liberty Hill Baptist Church in Columbus, Georgia, and my mom was getting saved at 34.
Okay.
And I remember going up there with her and getting saved also. But I remember in Vacation Bible School, right, they told me that Jesus was coming back. And I remember it freaked me out. Like, I'm like, yo, like, I need to get my life right. Like, what am I doing? At 8. I was scared.
Right.
I was like, whoa.
Okay.
And then I ended up giving my life to God. So God has been a part of my life since I was 8 years old. But I also know, too, as time went, right, he never took his hand off of me. But I also went in different directions. Yeah. And, he was heavy in my life in college. I was going to chapel. I was praying a lot. I was really talking to him heavy, right? But then once I got to the pros, I kind of got away from that.
Okay.
Like, I stopped going to chapel. I stopped praying to him a lot. Stuff around me was happening. And, you get lax, right? And I wasn't talking to him as much as I needed to. And he was still there.
Of course.
And he was still speaking.
Right.
I just wasn't
listening. There you go. Yeah.
I just wasn't listening, right? And I think what brought me back to him was Allison, my wife.
Yeah.
Right? Because she's like, her upbringing and her being is the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Her mom, my mother-in-law, she's an apostle. She's a person in my life that really helped guide me, right? When my mother wasn't guiding me, she was there guiding me. So she's like my second mom, right? And so, through that experience, I still, when it came to God being in my life, he was still there.
Yeah.
But that don't mean we're not going to go through trials and triumph, right? I still had an issue that was plaguing me. But as you can see, God put these people right in my life at the right time, at the right moment, right? Because if I wouldn't have those people, I wouldn't be here. Yeah. And I'm going to be honest with you. I would not be here. Yeah. And I know gonna go to that next, but that's where when I go to Seattle.
Yeah, no, I relate. Man, we have so much. I got saved when I was 16, and I was really struggling with depression as well.
Yeah.
My uncle was a very successful business person, and he passed when I was 13, and that really disrupted my family unit because I would go over and visit my father every other weekend, and my dad had to take over the company and move to Paris. And at the same time, I finished school where I was like in a very diverse school. I was like the man at that school on the basketball team, Catholic school. I'd been there from 1st grade through 8th grade, and then went to a predominantly white, very elite high school, shout out Georgetown Prep.
Okay,
yeah, right?
okay, yeah.
You've heard of Prep, and so which is like and then my mother and I we moved. So within like less than a year, I lived in a new house, went to a new school, and my father was overseas with my family. And I was detached from my family unit, which was in Baltimore. I lived outside of DC to go to Baltimore. And so that year was a lot. And so by the time I got to 16, I had kind of muddled my way through school. I had 2 knee surgeries in that time. Already? Yeah. So
wow.
Yeah. So I had one.
How old were you then?
I had my first knee surgery. I had just turned 15.
Wow.
And then I had another one.
That's tough.
3 or 4 months later.
Yeah.
So I had one July after my freshman year. Then I had one in October that same year. I didn't rehab the first one right. Tried to go play JV football as a sophomore and then tore it up even worse. And so I was able to come back eventually, play basketball, do track, and never play football again. But so it was just a lot had happened to me, and I was dealing with a lot just by myself. That was just kind of hard to have people to connect to understand all of that, and I didn't understand a lot of it myself. And so, getting saved at 16, went to church and had a meeting with a deacon pastor, and we just had a conversation. And he said, let's pray. And he started praying. And he said, repeat after me. Yeah. And I repeated the first thing, repeated the second thing. And somewhere along the line, I stopped repeating after him. And I was just there and my eyes closed, praying, opened my eyes. And he looked at me and said, are you okay? I said, yeah. He said, why did you stop repeating after me? I said, I didn't hear you say anything. And so that's how I came to Christ. And so I think in that moment, the Spirit met me in that moment. And I remember feeling different. I remember seeing things different later on. That was in the fall, my junior year in high school. Yeah. That spring, I went on a retreat called Kairos, which in Greek stands for God's time. And that's when my life really changed. And I really saw myself in a different way. I saw my peers in a different way. And that's something I may unpack at a different episode, But, in terms of, privilege and my role and my place of belonging at that school, I didn't feel like I wasn't sure I belonged there. Yeah. I wasn't sure that was my community, but when I came back, I realized I did belong there. I had classmates who admitted on that retreat they have family members who are alcoholics. Another classmate of mine had I think his brother got sick and died, and he, so we all had this time like a brotherhood to share this stuff. Yeah, and that vulnerability and that time to just be with God and be with like your brothers and seeing these we're kids, that even though my parents were divorced and I had a challenge. I thought it was just woe was me. And some of this, I feel like sometimes it just can be a little bit of selfishness because you're in isolation. You think you're the only one that has these problems, life problems. Yeah. And in realizing that, no, my peers had it too. That was such a revelation for me. I came back. I ran for student government. I ended up being the first student coach. I coached the basketball team. Our freshman basketball team, I was an assistant coach. My senior year, and just did all these things and went to college after that. And so, it definitely was a pivotal point for me. And then similar to you, like you were saying, wasn't walking with God, certainly in college. Yeah. It's a whole nother story. But nonetheless saw God's hand on me, and God would send me people, and I wasn't always listening. I had so many things I started to deal with and walk through and grow from. Yeah. But certainly looking back now, see God's hand. Certainly had conversations with God, but certainly wasn't going to church, wasn't being discipled, into through college at least, right? And so, again, to see a lot of these parallels in terms of the journey that you've had.
Sometimes I used to feel like I wasn't worthy or my life wasn't hard enough. Like because my dad was in my life. Sure. Right. Some of the kids that I grew up with, some of the lives that they had. Right. My dad was like a father figure to them. Okay. Yeah. Right. And so my dad has always been there and has always been hard on me, but that, that shaped me into the man that I am. But I always felt like, am I really worthy of this?
Right.
Like, is my life really that hard for me to, get this blessing?
Right.
So I always carried that with me, like I wasn't deserving. So I was always shelling out or giving because, like, in my mind, I'm like, what do I need it? What do I need it for? But I had to realize as well, like,
on the next episode of the Progress Podcast,
right, to get into the pros, not playing well, having family on my back, having the coaches, fans, everything. Sleep. So had an anxiety attack, and anybody who has anxiety who understands, sometimes it feels like your chest is caving in. I was sleeping on my chest. It just felt like my chest was caving in. Football is causing me to try to end my life, to try to commit suicide, then I don't want it.
Right.
Because that's when I can really think, because I wasn't in the act. I was safe, and there's nothing that can harm me.
Look at what we do. They cannot tell me nothing. Baby, the way you walk, I love it. And if you take too long, I'm rushing. I come the way you are, just trust it. Then we gon' love forever, and we gon' ride this thing together. I got my mind on you and never